Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to go over my top baits of 2020. Stay tuned. Alright guys, welcome back if you made it through that intro. 2020 was a kind of a weird year for everybody. Well, 2020 is still going on, but the fishing's starting to wind down. I know the fall bites is heating up in certain parts of the country, maybe even some places of the country. The fall bite's gone, but here in Maryland, September was a pretty rough month, so we'll see. I'm headed down to Alabama in a couple weeks. Hopefully that fall bite will be turned on by then. But yeah, so 2020 was a good year, and was able to qualify for the Challenge Series Championship for KBF on Guntersville, which I'm going to in a couple weeks. And then the National Championship next October in Shreveport, Louisiana. So yeah, let's get started with the baits that help me do that. So first up, we got the Booyah, the Pad Crasher. The black one's probably that is my go-to. Usually when I'm fishing the frog, I'm fishing it on top of mats or matted grass or algae or something. I usually don't fish it open water. If I'm gonna fish open water, I'm gonna fish something other than a frog. But what I like to do with my frogs is like everybody else does. They got some grass. Cut the legs short, just like everybody else does. And then also what I do is I modify it a little bit. I'll put a rattle in it, especially for when it's on top of that mat. Kind of gives it a little bit more weight to push down into that mat so the fish can find it, and the fish kind of hear that rattle a little bit and they can hone in on it. I don't know if you'll be able to hear this or not, but so yeah, all I do for the rattles is I just go to your Walmart, pick up some BBs, the 177 size. Doesn't matter if they're the copper ones or the steel ones. I just buy the smallest amount I can because I don't need 1,500 BBs for frogs. So, and then actually these little, Fluke Master, I was watching a video he did and he turned me on to these. They're the little little jingle bells. I don't know if you'll be able to see that or not, but they're like little jingle bells or cat bells as he called them. And yeah, you just shove them into the little hole that's underneath your frog. And the Booyah frogs work really good because they actually have the big hole where the hooks come out at, and then they also have a small hole here. So that works well for my next modification. Is I'll take some electrical tape and I will tape that hook. I don't know if you can see that or not. There you go. Now my head's down, you can probably see it. But I'll put electrical tape around on that hook to help close that hole so water doesn't get in. And the good thing about the Booyah frogs is since they have that small hole right at the back, I can completely fill this hole up and air can still get out, so it can collapse real easily. So that's my go-to bait for summertime mostly, but anytime I see grass or algae floating around, I'm going to be throwing that frog. As far as the rod, there's a ceiling up there. This is a Dobyns Champion XP 736, 7'3", heavy extra fast, and I throw it with a Lew's Tournament Pro with 65-pound braid. Lock that drag down and get her to the boat. I use the 7-speed ratio reel. Pretty much all the reels I use are 7-speed, and if I need to go faster, I'll wind faster. If I need to go slower, I'll slow down. I think the 7-speed is a good all-around speed. So that's the frog. Next we got, for when it really gets thick, I'm talking like the thick stuff, We got ourselves, this is a BizBaits BizBug with a Swagger tungsten, the Vader series. This is their no chip series. This one's their 1 ounce, I do believe, but I'll use a 1 ounce or 1.5 ounce, and I'll usually double peg it. You can see there's 2 little bobber stops there, and then I use a Gamakatsu straight shank hook. I think this is the heavy cover. They have an extra heavy cover. That thing's stout. You need a pool stick to set the hook on that one. But yeah, I like the straight shanks. Oh, and then I snell the knot. I do a snell knot for when I tie it on, because when it comes down, it kind of jacks that hook up a little bit. The good thing about these I'll take these bobber stops off. Whew. Good thing about these, yeah, this was the 1 ounce. The good thing about these Swagger weights is they don't chip. I've done a video a long time ago, posted it on some other social medias. I didn't post it on YouTube or anything. And I actually chucked these things at the concrete floor on my basement, and they don't chip at all. They started, you're definitely not going to be able to see this, but on the underside, they print the weight. So this is 1.0, it means it's 1 ounce. So to rig your punch setup, you have your straight shank hook with your snell knot. If you're not sure how to tie a snell knot, Google it. It's pretty easy, or I can do a video on it. Take your bait. Some people like to go in, you know, the bait at an angle like this. I like to just go straight in till you get to about the bend of the hook. Then pop out. Turn your hook. Get the bait up above that bait keeper. Find out where the bait goes in. So I want it right there. Pinch it. Come down. And don't put the hook all the way through. Just pull down on the bait. And then there you go. You're not going to get caught on anything. Fish grabs that. They got plenty of room. And then you just jack their jaw. Boom. Just like that. The BizBaits BizBug has the flanged claws, so you get some pretty good action. When I'm punching, I pretty much only do black and blue, because if you think about it, underneath, if the mat's thick enough, there's nothing but shade under there, so they're not going to see anything really. So there's really no sense in getting picky with colors. You know, oh, I want, you know, green pumpkin magic, or I want watermelon red. Just go back black and blue. It's dark underneath that thick mat anyway, and the dark, you know, adds a nice silhouette in dirty and stained water. So as far as punching goes, we'll get rid of that. As far as punching goes, my setup, I remembered the ceiling this time, is another Dobyns. This one's the Champion Extreme. This one is their 746, which is a 7'4" heavy flip fast. Not sure what flip fast action means, but this rod's a beast. It just, trust me, it'll handle some big fish and a lot of grass. As far as the reel, a lot of people like to get like the Lew's Super Duties, or they'll get like a big durable heavy reel for flipping or punching. Me personally, I don't see the point in that. You're not using that much line anyway, so you might as well go with the smallest, lightest reel you can get away with. I know a lot of people like the heavier reels, because usually when you're flipping, the rod is longer and heavier, and the heavier reel kind of helps with the balance, but I don't really notice it that much. The one I use is the Lew's Custom Light and 65-pound braid again. It's a great reel. I have no complaints whatsoever about this Custom Light or about this Dobyns rod. The good thing about, let me swing this around here. Good thing about these Custom Lights is they're so small, you can literally fit your whole hand around them things. It's crazy. And they're probably, actually they are, they're the lightest reel Lew's makes, and I've flipped some thick, heavy stuff with this reel. It's held up. Same with the rod. And yeah, so this one caught me quite a few decent ones this year, that's for sure. Okay, so next up we got jigs. Specifically, this jig right here. It's a black and blue Seabird Outdoors sniper jig head. It's got the horizontal line tie. The head's kind of it's kind of a unique shape. It's kind of triangular, like a swim jig head, but it's also got that keel to it, kind of like an arky head. It's really good. This sniper jig, if you look it up on Seabird Outdoors website and you kind of just like search, I did a search for finesse jigs a while ago when I found this jig, and this popped up. And it really is, it's, as far as its profile from the head of the bait to the back of the hook, it really is a compact, like, finesse jig. And it comes in weights like a normal finesse jig, 3/16, 5/16, 7/16. But the hook on this thing is not like a finesse jig hook. You can put some nice heavy braid on there on a nice stout rod, and you can jack them with this hook, and it's not going to bend out. So I love that it's a nice small finessey profile, but with a nice stout jig hook, not like some of those actual finesse jigs that you see out on the market these days. The trailer for every jig I use, no matter what, is a BizBaits Killer Crawl. It's pretty much same as the BizBug, but it's got that cylindrical body, so it's a little bit smaller profile. And I feel like the claws, well, here, let's figure this out. We're gonna figure this out together. I feel like the claws are kind of like flappier, if that's a word. I guess it is. They seem softer, and they have a little bit more action on the Killer Crawl. But when they weren't biting a full-size jig, I would go down to this little sniper jig, and it would get me a few extra bites. The other jig I would use a lot is also by Seabird Outdoors. This is called his brush jig, and it's got that hidden line tie right there, a nice upright style head. It's going to stand up for you. And this isn't just his normal brush jig. This is called his dredge jig. He offers this dredge style jig in a lot of different heads. I saw it on an arky head, I think a football head also. And what that is the hook that's on it. It's, if you look, it's not your normal, let's take this off. It's not your normal round bend hook like the sniper jig. That's your sniper jig with the round bend hook right there. And then this is his dredge jig. It's got that nice hard angle right there past the barb. And not only does it help keep your fish pinned, but it also helps your trailer stand up even better. And because you have this straight shank here, it's actually going straight back to a hard angle and then another hard angle to help keep that fish pinned. So yeah, these Seabird Outdoors jigs are amazing. He's got a bunch of different types of jigs. He's got tungsten heads on there. He's got the brush heads. He's got the sniper heads. He's got ball heads. He's got arky heads, football heads. Anything you can think of, Seabird Outdoors has. You should definitely go check them out. So for my jig rod, or should I say my jig rods, my go-to jig rod is a Dobyns Ecstasy 725. It's a 7'2" mag heavy fast. Now it says mag heavy, and you're thinking, oh my god, you know, that's a really stout rod. A Dobyns mag heavy is like pretty much the rest of the industry's heavy. It's a really nice rod. The Ecstasy series, it's this higher end line of rods. The tip's a little bit softer. So if I'm just kind of flipping a jig around or dragging a jig around into some lay downs or some sparser cover, I'll use this. These Ecstasy rods are they're so sensitive. You can feel every little nook and cranny and pebble and branch and twig and fish farts and everything else. The reel is the Lew's Hypermag 7 gear ratio again, 50-pound braid, and that is one of my jig setups. My other jig setup is Dobyns Champion Extreme. This is a 745, 7'4" mag heavy fast. This rod, the tip's still soft, but the action on it is faster, a little crisper than the Ecstasy. So it kind of hits that backbone a little bit quicker. So I'll fish this in some heavier heavier cover, like thicker laydowns, or I'll fish it around grass too. But if I'm around thicker cover, I'm going to go for the 745 for a couple reasons. A, like I said, it hits that backbone a little bit quicker because the tip's a little bit faster. And also the extra couple inches gives you just that little bit more leverage to get that fish out of that thick cover. Go-to rod for this one is Lew's Custom Pro. It just kind of looks pretty sick. I think it goes together. 50-pound braid again, 7 gear ratio. All the braid that I run on my rods is Power Pro. I do have one rod that I have Daiwa J braid on. I was just kind of trying it out. Not a problem with the J braid. I'm just a big Power Pro fan. So next, and probably as far as power fishing goes, the most success I had on this year was a swim jig. This is the 6 Sense Divine swim jig with a 6 Sense Divine paddle tail. It's just a great combination. I use the Kitex too, but sometimes the Kitex have a little bit too much of a wobble, and to be honest with you, the Kitex are so soft, a bluegill bites the tail off, and now you're done. You gotta get a new one on. The 6 Sense swim jigs, they have a corkscrew keeper instead of the barb keeper, so it really holds it on. I mean, you can see I'm almost threading this swim bait off the hook, and it's still not coming off of the head. And the other thing is with those Kitex, since they're so soft, when you're trying to screw it onto the corkscrew keeper, it doesn't. Sometimes you'll tear up your Kitex just trying to screw it on there. But I could catch fish all day on the 6 Sense swim bait, and I won't have to change it out. They're really durable. They have a lot of action, as you can see. They're crazy. This is their bluegill color, but I also had a lot of success on their black and blue swim jig. If you've noticed the theme here, there's a lot of black and blue. There's a reason for that, and I'll get to that after I get through all the rest of these baits. But yeah, just 6 Sense swim jig, triangular head, just like another swim jig. Fish it around the grass. This is the 1/4 ounce, so fish it in super shallow water or just over the top of that grass. Anytime you feel hung up, just give a few good pops, and that usually triggers a strike. If I want to get down into the grass where the fish are and just bust through it, 3/8 is what I'll use. But yeah, 6 Sense swim jig with a 6 Sense paddle tail. And for the rod, another Dobyns, surprise, surprise. This is the Champion XP 735, 7'3" medium heavy extra fast, and with a Lew's Hypermag 7-speed reel, and this has 50-pound Daiwa J braid on it. I forgot about leaders. So for the flippin' and the frog rods, it's just straight braid. For my jig rods, I will run, and sometimes my flipping rod if I'm in really clear water. For my flipping rod and my jig rods, I'll run a 20-pound leader. And for my swim jigs, I'll run a 15-pound fluorocarbon leader. Length, that's really up to you. I just try not to make it so long that it comes back onto the spool of the reel. But I also don't like the knot to go through a whole bunch of guides. So I'll probably usually do like 3-4 feet. All really depends on water clarity. So for the finesse side of things, when the bite gets tough, everybody likes to throw wacky rigs and Nico rigs and everything else like that, and I throw them too, but the most success I had for finesse fishing was these two rigs right here. Shaky head and weightless stick bait. We'll start with the weightless stick bait first because it's the most simplest. Everybody knows about the weightless Texas rig, you know, Senko, stick bait, whatever you want to call it. This is a BizBait Sassy Stick in green pumpkin candy. It's a really good bluegill imitator. Excuse me. I'll run it with a regular offset round bend hook sometimes, but for the most part, I run it with a extra wide gap hook. This is a 3/0 Gamakatsu, the regular, not the super line hook. And the green pumpkin candy and black and blue were definitely my go-to colors this year. Just fishing it like you fish any other weightless Senko. You just cast it out there, let it sink. When it hits the bottom, let it sit for a couple more seconds, and lift your rod tip. You can either lift it or you can give it 2 quick pops and then let it sink again, and then just wait for your line to swim off. Next is the BizBait's Dizzy Diamond. This is their regular. They have a Mag Dizzy Diamond, which is about 1.5 inches longer and like twice as fat. This is the regular Dizzy Diamond on shaky head. I can't remember the brand of the shaky head, but it is tungsten, and I like that because tungsten's smaller. Swagger, good old Swagger tungsten right here. They just came out with a shaky head this year. I did not get a chance to get any. I'm hoping that in the near future they make a shaky head jig head with the screw lock keeper, because that's the ones I prefer. The ones that they came out with was the old school style with the barb on the shank of the hook. But the good thing, one of the reasons why I really like the Dizzy Diamond, well, BizBaits in general, their crawls, do it on the back of trailers and everything, is just like if you ever buy a bag of BizBaits, it says right on the bag, salted, scented, and stand up. You don't need like a special stand-up shaky head, jig head to get this thing to get the worm to angle up, because all BizBaits plastics, not only do they smell with their Jackum juice, they call it, smells like a garlic kind of crawfish. Smells like pretty much every scent that they've ever put in a bag of plastics in the fishing industry, all mixed to one. It's potent. It smells. But the fish love it. They are salted. You know, if you ever bite down a bait, like if I want to make this a little bit smaller, bite the head down, there's definitely salt in there. But somehow, with the salt in it, they're still able to get their plastic to float. Not sink slower than everybody else, but it actually floats. This tail will actually sit up off the bottom, you know, like this. The crawls on the back of the jig, the claws on them, they'll actually sit up in a defensive position, whether you have that type of jig head or not. That's just how BizBaits plastics work. Where that also comes in handy with your weightless Texas rig stick bait is it'll sink a little bit slower, so it stays in that strike zone a lot longer, which obviously the more you have a bait in front of a fish's face, the more inclined they are to bite it. So let's get rid of those. Let's go over the rods. I will fish the shaky head and the weightless Texas rig on either of these two rods. I'm not picky. Actually, I am picky. I'm kind of fond of bait casters, so I will most of the time fish either one on this. This is a Dobyns Ecstasy. Sorry, my phone went off. This is a Dobyns Ecstasy. It's a 723. It's a 7'2" medium heavy fast. Like I said, it says it's medium heavy, between, you know, the tip being a little bit softer, which is great. Don't get me wrong, I love a nice soft tip on a rod. You can get a real accurate cast. It'll load up better, so you can sling it a little bit farther than if it was a really, really fast action rod. But it says medium heavy. It fishes kind of like a medium, but heavier. Like I'd call it like a medium plus. But it's great. The reel, Lew's Custom Light with 30-pound Power Pro. I use the High Vis, so you can see it. You don't have to sit there and feel for bites or anything like that. At least the way I fish this stuff when I finesse fish, I fish by sight. When I see this line jump, which is why I used to high vis, I'm reeling down and setting that hook. I don't like the slack line hook set. On the bait casting outfit, I'll run a 12 pound fluorocarbon leader. And then my spinning setup is a Dobyns Ecstasy again. This is the spinning rod. This is a 723 spinning rod. Sorry about that. And it's a 7'2". This is a medium fast action with a Shimano Stratic 2500 size with, once again, the high vis 30 pound Power Pro. If I'm usually like early spring when the grass isn't really thick and it's still really short, I will most of the time fish on the spinning setup. Either one of these, it's more comfortable to shake the shaky head on a spinning rod. It's more comfortable, and let's be honest, you know, the spinning reel has that nice little clicking sound, so it's nice to hear that when a big fish is pulling on your bait. Once things get a little bit thicker as far as grass goes, I usually switch over to the bait casting setup. On my spinning setup, I'll run a 10 pound fluorocarbon leader. Now, the reason why I told you all on my Instagram post that I had an honorable mention in the video, the reason why this didn't make my top list was because, and this kind of all ties into why I use a lot of black and blue, my theory behind it anyway, is because I fish mostly around a lot of grass, a lot of milfoil, a lot of lily pads, a lot of, you know, green vegetation. So usually treble hook baits and vegetation don't mix. You can fish a lipless, you know, in the springtime or, you know, in the late fall or whatever, and rip it out of the grass. But the grass around here gets pretty thick, I ain't gonna lie. You're not gonna be ripping too much out of the algae and the milfoil around here on the eastern shore of Maryland with treble hook baits. But the few places I do fish don't have a lot of grass, or they have mostly wood, is of course the good old trusty square bills. And my go-to square bill for this year, well, for every year really, is the 6 Sense Crush 50. This one is the rattling version. It's a very, very faint rattle, and that you're not gonna find a better square bill than this. You might find some equals. The KVD 1.5. Everybody knows the KVD 1.5s. You can find them in Walmart. If they're really finicky, but I feel like, you know, they're around the wood or whatnot, and I can get a reaction strike out of them, I'll use the KVD 1.5 because they're silent. But most of the time, I'm going to start off fishing wood with this square bill right here. This is the Chartreuse. I can't remember the actual name. They got some different names for them, but it's basically like a Chartreuse Sexy Shad. This is called their 4K Shad. It's a really nice paint scheme. 6 Sense is really known for their paint schemes, but the reason why I use a lot of 6 Sense hard baits is because I don't fish around a lot of shad. Everywhere I fish around here in Maryland, the bait fish is bluegill. That's what it is. And you always listen to the pros on YouTube or, you know, in interviews, and they'll tell you, like, you know, if you don't have shad in your lake, you know, use a bluegill imitation. Well, in the hard bait world, especially square bills, there's not hardly any bluegill imitations out there, and if they are, they don't look anything like a bluegill. 6 Sense, however, has probably the largest selection of bluegill colors that you will ever find. This one, I think this one's called Bluegill Spawn. They have, just in their Crush 50 line, I think they have like 5 different bluegill color combinations. The backwater bluegill is probably my favorite. But this is Bluegill Spawn. It's perfect. It's got a little bit, it's got that blue, purple, it's got that nice orange belly in there. I got a treble hook in my thumb. But it literally has the exact same action as your KVD 1.5s, you know, the proven square bill, but better paint scheme, better hooks out the package. It already comes with extra wide gap hooks, which is what I prefer. That's a different story for a different video. But 9 times out of 10, I will run the extra wide gap treble hooks instead of the round bend. It all depends on if they're really munching it or if they're just swatting at it. But the hooks are better right out the package. They're the hooks I like. The split rings are a little bit better. It already comes with the oval split ring for the line tie, and just overall the realistic paint schemes. My go-to rod for my square bills, I actually kind of have two, but as far as square bills go, I have a rod I like fishing my lipless crankbaits on, and I have a rod I like fishing my square bills on. My lipless rod's a little bit stouter. It's the next power up, and sometimes I'll throw a square bill on it. But that's neither here nor there. The rod I use is a Dobyns Champion XP 705 CB. It is a medium heavy, moderate fast action. This rod can do it all when it comes to treble hook baits, to be honest with you. It can fish lipless crankbaits. I wouldn't fish lipless crankbaits on this rod in the thickest of grass, but it will fish it. It can fish your top waters. Just kind of mess with your drag. You don't want to lock your drag down with this, because usually your top waters come with thinner wire treble hooks as opposed to your square bills. And you can fish jerk baits on this if you really needed to. Once again, just watch your drag, because jerk baits definitely come with some thinner wire hooks. But this 705 CB just is amazing. It's a moderate fast. It's all graphite. It's not like most crankbait rods where it's graphite and fiberglass mix, or just fiberglass in general. This is 100% graphite, so you will literally feel every little, you know, thingamajig that the thingamabob is doing down in the water. As far as line, on this rod, on this rod, I have a Lew's Hypermag with 15-pound fluorocarbon all the way through. I believe it's Seaguar and VizX. I was just giving Seaguar fluorocarbon a try this year. I don't fish a whole lot of mainline fluorocarbon, so I haven't really had a chance to try out different brands too much, or different lines within brands. I've tried the InvizX. I've tried the AbrazeX. AbrazeX is really nice, but it's really thick compared to the InvizX of the same pound. My favorite's probably the Sunline, though. Next year, I haven't really had any problems out of the InvizX. I really like the Sunline, so probably next season I'll go back to Sunline. Excuse me. So yeah. Why a lot of black and blues? You always hear people tell you, you know, if you're fishing clear water, fish natural colors or translucent colors for hard baits. If you're fishing in stained or dirty water, use black or like really vibrant colors like your chartreuse and blacks or something like that. What I have found, this is just me, I might be in the small camp here, but what I have found, if you're fishing around grass, black and blue is the color to go with. I don't know why. Don't ask me. I'm not an expert. But if you're fishing around grass, especially thick grass, that black and blue, it does something to them. I don't know, because obviously black and blue, I mean, doesn't really mimic a bluegill. Maybe some bluegill. I have caught some dark bluegill before, and you know, bluegill, especially young bluegill, have that bluish sheen to it, so it might imitate a bluegill. I don't know. But usually around grass, the bait fish and the bass themselves, next time you pull a bass out of grass, pay attention to its color. It's usually a darker color. Fish that live in and around grass, for the most part, tend to be a darker shade of whatever their colors are normally. So fishing a darker bait just makes sense. To me it did, so I started fishing more black and blue. I don't fish the clearest of water, but for, you know, little mill ponds and stuff, or rivers, whatnot, that get a little stained up. As I might not be the clearest of water, but for around here, I would consider some of the water I fish clear compared to other water around here, and black and blue will still catch them. If you're around grass, just tie on something black and blue. Don't worry about the water clarity. Unless, obviously, you're in, 15 feet of water and you can see the bottom, don't fish black and blue. But I'm also a big believer in just fish natural colors, no matter what the water color is. I mean, even if you're in really, really stained water, those bluegill are still the same color as what they are in clear water. They might be, a little shade darker or whatnot, but for the most part, what looks like a bluegill, your green pumpkin, those bass still eat bluegill in muddy water. So how else do the bass find those fish in muddy water? Through their lateral line, through the vibration. Will you get more bites on those really bright colors or really dark colors? Obviously, because the fish can see it a little bit better. It's a really bright color, really dark color. But if you're planning on going fishing one day, the watercolor normally, and then the night before you go fishing, a big storm runs through and muddies up your water. When you get there, don't worry about it. Those bluegill are the same color as what they were before the storm. Those bass are still going to eat that bluegill that's a green pumpkin color. Your green pumpkin will work. I would just maybe try to put on something that's got a little bit more thump to it. So yeah, black and blues, green pumpkin candies, green pumpkin magic. That's actually the color of that Dizzy Diamond on Shaky Head. Forgot to mention it. That green pumpkin magic was money for me this year. Or I guess you could say it was magic. Okay, so enough with the little dad puns. So yeah, those were my top baits of 2020. Like I said, I had a pretty good season. Headed down to Guntersville in a couple weeks. Well, really a week and a half. And after that, I'm taking the next few months off until March rolls around, and then tournament season picks back up. And after that, next October, National Championship in Shreveport. If I have another good season this next season, this next year, calendar year, 2021, if I have another good 2021 and I qualify for the Challenge Series Championship in Shreveport, then I'll fish the National Championship and the Challenge Series Championship down there. Hoping to take a little bit more time off this year from work, maybe manage it a little bit better so I can fish the Trail Series. I like fishing against other people same day, kind of, put your skills up against each other instead of, seeing who can catch the best fish within a month. It's always nice to know who the best top dog on the water that day is. So, yeah. That's about all I got for you guys. Stay safe, wear your mask, all that good stuff. If you like the video, give me a thumbs up. Lets me know that I'm doing what you guys like. But leave me a comment. Let me know how I did. Let me know if there's any other questions that you wanted answered, or if you just have, want to chit chat about bass fishing. I will talk about fishing until the cows come home. And then, as always, subscribe to the channel. So stay safe out there. I'll catch y'all later.